Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a quick little tribute video here today. We've just learned this morning of the passing of another great guitarist extraordinaire, founding member of Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green. Born Peter Allen Greenbaum, October 29th, 1946. He passed away early this morning in his sleep, July 25th, 2020. And leaves behind quite a legacy, not only of the early music of Fleetwood Mac, but his guitar artistry. I mean, well respected for his guitar playing. Also, an excellent singer too. You know, most folks who love like Fleetwood Mac, generally, the more casual fans think of the Buckingham Nicks era of the band, but actually they have a long history before then. It actually started out in the late 60s as a British blues band with, the original lineup: John McVie, Mick Fleetwood, Peter Green, Jeremy Spencer, Danny Caruana. That was the original band, basically a blues band. And you had all these very, very strong musicians and characters in this band to make them what they were, and alongside other acts like Savoy Brown and Chicken Shack and so on and so forth, a big part of the British blues movement, Jethro Tull 10 years after, that sort of thing. So he leaves us today at the age of 73. Kind of an interesting career, though, because he, while the early Fleetwood Mac were a very popular band, obviously not to the level of popularity that they were later become towards the end of the 70s, but they were a very influential band on the British blues scene. You got three guitar players in the band, all very different from each other, all sorts of songwriters. He eventually wound up leaving the band after just a few short years, and got really messed up on psychedelic drugs and kind of like lost his way for a while. And then eventually, he had dealt with mental health issues, but eventually, made his way back to, put out some records and become a member of the Music Society once again. I think a lot of, in recent years, a lot of people talk about, that classic guitar, that Gibson Les Paul that he played early on, that he wound up selling to Gary Moore, that now is in the hands of Kirk Hammett from Metallica. All right, the Greenie guitar. It's one of the most famous Les Pauls on the planet. But just a great player. And of course, let's not forget how Peter Green got his start in John Mayall and the Bluesbreakers. All right, so he appeared early on, right? He was basically the successor to Eric Clapton. Not an easy feat for anybody, but boy, did he live up to the billing. And then went on to form Fleetwood Mac, right, like we said. So just wanted to kind of touch on some of the classic albums. And I forgot to grab the John Mayall stuff. Hold on, maybe do I have it right here? Just want to see if I got the Mayall stuff handy. I don't know exactly where I have that. Nah, probably not. Anyway, that classic, especially the first album he appeared on, just absolutely amazing. But then, you got the Fleetwood Mac albums. Okay, you got the self-titled album, of course. Okay, you've got Mr. Wonderful, which has Stop Messing Around and Dust My Broom, Coming Home, Trying Hard to Forget. A lot of good stuff here. The first album also has its share of classics. Long Gray Mare, Hellbound on My Trail, No Place to Go. The third album, The Pious Bird of Good Omen. All right, another very strong album. He would leave the band shortly after that. Of course, probably the seminal album that he appeared on was 1969, or actually no, 1970, early 1970s. Then Play On. He would leave after this particular album. This is probably, out of all the studio albums that he appeared on with Fleetwood Mac, easily the best. This is a really strong album produced by Martin Birch. All right, it's got Coming Your Way on it. All right. Oh Well, probably his signature track. Great stuff on here. You got Searching for Madge and Fighting for Madge, the great studio jams, which just let Danny and Peter just unleash all sorts of great soloing before the beginning. Closing My Eyes, a lot of great stuff on here. A lot of great stuff on here. You got this very cool, the early years. All right, it's got a selection of live stuff here. Of course, you got a big rambling Green Manalishi. Okay, made popular by Judas Priest, but of course a Fleetwood Mac song. You got Black Magic Woman on here, another song made famous by another band, obviously Santana, originally a Fleetwood Mac song. You got Oh Well on here, Madison Blues, all sorts of other stuff on here. Very, very cool. And then you got this really, really excellent Live at the BBC double disc set. This came out, when was this originally released? 1995 on Castle. Here you got a lot of their great studio classics, as well as like B-sides and rarities and things, all sorts of stuff, because they were very busy recording all over the place. Not a lot of their stuff, I mean, they had plenty of stuff that did not make their actual studio albums. A lot of great material on here. Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't know, just Albatross, another really, really amazing instrumental that showcased his wonderful, and his guitar style was like, he wasn't like a, I try to, to compare him to some of his peers at the time, so of course you got like Hendrix and Clapton, obviously, and Mick Taylor and Alvin Lee and all those guys. I mean, he was a very lyrical, tasty player who, with one or two notes, could say what other guys took, 10 or 15. I mean, he just would hit one note and you knew it was Peter Green. And he had the sweetest tone, and he was, very notable for kind of rewiring the pickup, the pots and stuff on his guitar to get these kind of like out of phase sounds, all right, which a lot of people nowadays, a lot of players nowadays, they go for that. They want that Peter Green slightly out of phase sound, okay, in their pickups. So just a really influential player that, again, wasn't a big showboat. He just, he would just come out and just with a couple notes, man, that's all he needed to do. And that was the Peter Green sound and style, right? I do want to touch on another album of his, which I only discovered later on. This was released, so this is after he had been kind of like, because he just like disappeared for a while. He just, he went out and did acid or whatever and kind of like got really freaked out on that, and that prompted all sorts of other mental issues going on. He just kind of like basically like disappeared and hid out for a while doing whatever it was he was doing, and he resurfaced later in the decade, in the 70s. He put out this very fine album called The End of the Game, which this is the album if you want to hear Peter Green just nonstop jamming. This is the album. It's just him just soloing all over the place, just kind of, he's got the fuzz going and the wah-wah, and he's just letting it rip. Just a really, really cool album. He's got a bunch of other guys playing on this. Zoot Money on piano, Godfrey McLean on percussion drums, Nick Buck on keyboards, and Alex Machowski on bass guitar. And then, of course, Peter on electric guitar. Just absolutely just scalding guitar solo and guitar playing on here. Yeah, there's not much else to say about it other than if you want to hear Peter Green absolutely unleashed, because he gave like little bits of that throughout, like the Fleetwood Mac stuff, but not enough in my opinion. And I think on here he just kind of lets it all hang out. So a great loss. A very, very influential player. Easily one of the greats of all time. I think if a lot of times, like guitar players, we tend to think of the greats in history by instrument. So like we often talk about those great players, those great Les Paul players, and he absolutely was one of them, and he's going to go down in history as being one of the greatest Les Paul players. Yeah, he's one of the greatest guitar players too, but he's always going to remember it as that Les Paul guy. Just kind of like, Jimi Hendrix is the Stratocaster guy, Blackmore's a Stratocaster guy, Page is more of a Les Paul guy, that sort of thing. So a fine player. He's going to be missed. Don't know what he died of. All they've said so far is that he passed away in his sleep at 73, but he is, he's been making sporadic appearances in recent years here and there. He's got a couple other, this guy have a couple of other solo albums kind of hanging around that he's done in recent years. Good, bluesy rock stuff. It was good to hear him back playing music once again. All right. But now he's gone. So rest in peace, Peter Green. Passed away today at the age of 73. Another great one joins the halls of the immortals up there. So he's up there jamming with all those other greats that we've lost over the years. So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. See you guys tomorrow with some more programming. But for now, go out and crank up some of these old Fleetwood Mac albums and listen to the majesty that was Peter Green. Take care of it. Bye-bye.